What's going on, Tarantino fans, and welcome to episode 5 of the Once Upon a Time with Tarantino series. If you guys are new here to the channel, feel free to click that subscribe button and that bell notification icon for more reviews, reactions, rankings, and more movie content. Guys, I'm super excited to introduce my special guest here, and we're going to be talking about, since we talked about Kill Bill Volume 1 last week with Amy from the movie Checklist, I have another awesome female reviewer as well talking about Kill Bill Volume 2. This is the final Kill Bill film. I have a great special guest right here. I was recently on her episode of Are You a Movie Oracle against Ben Goddard, and you guys have to go check out that match to see how I did. I think she's a great movie reviewer in this community that you guys need to check out. That is Ashley from the Movie Oracle. Ashley, thank you so much for joining the series.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to talking about some Kill Bill Volume 2.
Me too. Thank you so much, Ashley, for joining the series. And guys, before we get started with the conversation, we want you guys to join the conversation down below in the comment section and tell us your thoughts on Kill Bill Volume 2. And we're just going to get right into this discussion right now. So, Ashley, let's talk about Kill Bill Volume 2. So, before we get into Kill Bill, though, Ashley, when did you first get introduced to Quentin Tarantino?
I'd say the first time that I ever came across him was his performance in 1996's From Dusk Till Dawn. I didn't know that it was Quentin Tarantino in that film. I kind of later in years heard that name being thrown around. I'm like, who is this person everybody's talking about? And my brother was just like, you know that film you watched From Dusk Till Dawn with the vampires and everything? I said, yeah. And he said, you know the one that got shot? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that's Quentin Tarantino. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, but isn't everybody talking about a director? And he's like, yeah, he directs, he acts, he does all that. So I'm like, oh, okay.
That's hilarious, Ashley. I think that's a really good way to get introduced to Tarantino because there's so many films that he's directed and many roles he's taken on. He's cameoed in many of his movies, and it's just very interesting to get introduced to.
Yeah, for sure.
So, let's talk about Kill Bill Volume 2, Ashley. So, Kill Bill Volume 2, this was the sequel, the follow-up after Kill Bill Volume 1. Ashley, talk about the Kill Bill films overall. What do you think of Volume 1 and 2?
I think that they're both really good. They're actually, the Kill Bill films are the only ones of any of Tarantino's films that have actually revisited more than once. And it's interesting how while it was filmed as one film and released as two separate films, they really do kind of feel like two separate films because there is such a different tone from the first part to the second part. So it's interesting because you wouldn't really, kind of, if you look at it like that, you wouldn't actually think it was one singular film. It kind of just feels right that it's two parts. I don't know, but that's just me.
I 100% agree. I think they're two completely different movies, even though they're all one continuous story. This revenge story that the bride, aka Uma Thurman, is going on. I think her journey throughout both of these films has just led her to being a true feminine hero, and all she wants to do is just to get revenge and kill Bill, the one who attempted to kill her, and get her daughter back. And I think both have different storylines, where Volume 1 is just mostly an action film, and Volume 2 is more of a character piece. This film overall, Volume 2, I think it is just as good as Volume 1. I don't know which one I prefer more. I prefer Volume 1 in terms of the action, but Volume 2 has some great character moments.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat because I like them both for different reasons, and I love the first part because of the action. It's that film is very much how when you open up and there's that narration talking about when you're on the path of revenge, that's your focus, nothing else matters. And that's exactly what she was doing. Nothing else mattered. She's just going off, killing all these people one by one, doing what she's got to do. Whereas in the second part, it's more emotion based. She's coming towards the end of her journey, and it's just like, well, when you've finished getting revenge, what happens to you after that? And then of course you get to the end And it's a complete twist, and she kind of realizes she gets to have a happy ending that she didn't at all see coming, so very emotional.
I 100% agree with that, Ashley, totally. Now, let's go to the third question overall. What parts of Volume 2 did you like more than the first one? And basically explain how you felt this was different from Volume 1.
The tone of the film, I feel, is completely different. The tone for Volume 2 feels very somber. And, you know, because she's approaching the end of her journey. And for Part 1, she just had this non-stop ferocity to her. And that's kind of toned down when we get to Part 2. And the pacing is a lot slower. A lot of the kind of in-between scenes seemed a lot more stretched out versus the other ones. Whereas Part 1, I felt, moved a lot faster. This one moves a lot slower. And so, yeah, it's very much more about talking and understanding about how certain characters are feeling, especially when she finally gets to confront Bill. And it really wasn't about them just duking it out and having a huge fight. It was about them actually talking things out.
We got to see more Beatrix Kiddo, which that's her real name, just going through struggles. I think her character loses a lot in this movie. She loses a lot of fights in the first half. She goes up against Michael Madsen's character overall. She gets stuck in a grave. She has to learn to get her way out of that. And basically continue the thing she's been wanting to do, is get her revenge and get to Bill. And I think the pace of this movie, it's longer than Volume 1. It's 2 hours and 16 minutes of total runtime. But I think the story that the bride goes through in this movie is more emotional, and the stakes are higher. I think
Definitely.
There's so many great action towards the second and last act, but there's more dialogue compared to Volume 1. And I think that goes right to the next question. Ashley, who's your favorite side character in this movie?
I guess that I like that we get a little bit more backstory to Elle, and learning about her history with Pai Mei and how she lost her eye. That's pretty interesting. And I like that there was constant moments that were kind of leading up to you figuring this out, from Kill Bill Volume 1, when Beatrix actually uses that eye-plucking move on one of the Crazy 88. And so you kind of see, like, oh, what was that about? And then we get to Volume 2, where we learn that that's something Pai Mei does, and so basically we're understanding he's actually taught her this technique, and then you find out he actually used that on Elle, so it's just like, oh, interesting. And then she gets to use it again and pluck out Elle's other eye, so she's completely blind. So as in this film, I'd say that she didn't have much going on, but they told us more about her.
I completely agree. I love what they did with Elle in this movie, and that eyeball scene. Ugh! But my favorite side character in this movie is definitely Bill. I think they did a lot with Bill in Volume 2. David Carradine's great as Bill. Just that whole final act, just non-stop dialogue, and it's just building up to the moment we've all been waiting for, to see them fight and to get her revenge on Bill. Bill is so much more fleshed out in Volume 2. I love his scenes with the bride, and I think him as a character is very complex, and everything with Beatrix's daughter at the end, I thought they did a great job. Tarantino really fleshed out those two at the end.
I definitely love Beatrix and Bill. I mean, for me, they are my favorite characters, because I don't really see Bill as a side character. He's very much the antagonist of the entire films, because it is called Kill Bill. He's always there in the background, but we don't see him until the second film. But he's always there in spirit, because she's always, that's her mission, to get to Bill. And so I've never seen him as a side character. I've seen him very much kind of on par, because he's always like the shadow, or like the devil on Beatrix's shoulder for the entire journey. So when you finally just see them face to face, it's just like, this is good stuff. So like, if I was just saying who are my favorite characters in general, like Beatrix and Bill are like on par. They're like pretty equal for me.
Ashley, what's your favorite scene in Volume 2?
One of, it's kind of between two, and funny how they're both, when Bill and Beatrix are together. So the first one is our opening scene. It's our first real scene seeing Bill and Beatrix together at the wedding rehearsal, and it's so slow, but it's so good and fascinating to watch because you can kind of really clearly see that there is a chemistry and a connection between those two, and you can kind of really see that Beatrix had really strong feelings for Bill, and it's like if anything had been different, she definitely would not have left him, but she had to do what she feel was right. But just watching them together, it's quite sad, and it's also such a complete spin when you know what's going to happen. You're like, but everything is so nice and so pleasant, and he seems so wholesome. It's like, and god damn it, now he's gonna shoot up the place. So I mean, that scene is really interesting, and you wouldn't think just by if you hadn't seen volume 1 and you just walked into volume 2 and you saw that, you're like, oh yeah, everything's gonna be fine. It's like, yeah, just wait a couple more minutes. But then on par with that is at the end of the film, and watching them once again reunited and talking. I especially love Bill comparing her to Superman.
Yeah,
I love that.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I love him using the Superman reference that, you know, compared to all superheroes, Superman is the real identity and Clark Kent is the alter ego, and comparing that to Kiddo and how she was living her life. I thought that was a really interesting symmetry there, and I think anybody using superheroes as an analogy is pretty fun. But then of course when it leads to Bill's 5 steps, that was a really good scene too. So yeah, there's a lot of good moments to pick from that, but pretty much any time Bill and Beatrix were on screen together, it was a good time.
100%. I love that scene. That's really good. That final act is amazing. For me, my favorite scene was Pai Mei. Getting introduced to Pai Mei. Like, he's such an awesome character I wanted to see more from. And just all of Beatrix's training scenes. Yeah. He's just like, no, you're an American. You can't. You're a terrible martial artist. And then they're just fighting each other and all. She's failing miserably. She's trying to break that wood. She's getting bloody. It's just awesome. I really love that whole interaction with Pai Mei and Beatrix. It's just so awesome, like seeing all those training scenes and to her finally having to get out of that situation where she's stuck in that grave. She's using the move that he taught her and she gets out of that grave. I love when characters are struggling and then they overcome a weakness of theirs. That's one of my favorite scenes. That snake scene, the Black Mamba scene, is my second favorite scene in the movie with Michael Madsen's character.
That's a good one.
That's great. And then it leads to that amazing fight scene with Elle and Beatrix. But for me, I have to go with Pai Mei scenes because he was such an entertaining character that I wanted to see more from. Alright, Ashley, if you were to nitpick a little bit, would you have a least favorite scene in Volume 2?
I would. I actually would. I was really disappointed and didn't feel it was necessary when they were showing Bud's extra scenes and showing him working as this bouncer at a strip club that nobody goes to. There was just nothing that felt necessary to that scene. I didn't feel like it added anything to the story. It didn't even give any exposure to the character of Bud. Like, I find interesting that a lot of other people got backstories, or we got to learn a little bit about them as a person. Even if it was like with Vernita Green, we didn't, necessarily know a backstory, but we know what's going on in her life right now. But it was kind of relevant because that at least kind of parallels, like, she got to have the life that Beatrix was denied. So that was interesting. But with Bud, there's not really a symmetry. There's really nothing kind of relevant to it. It's just kind of like, well, he's living a shit life, and it's almost like he chose it. One could say maybe he's living a shit life because he feels guilty for what he did, but nevertheless, it's not like that stops him from shoving her into a box and burying her in the ground. But Yeah, I just felt like that scene either didn't need to be there or could have been used to tell us a little bit more about Bud's backstory, the fact that he is Bill's brother. That kind of seems to be so overlooked, like we hear it, and then of course you see the message engraved on his sword that, to the only man I ever loved. So it's like, okay, we get that there's meant to be really closeness, but doesn't ever really seem to be on screen. Even when, we finally meet Bill, he doesn't seem at all bothered that Beatrix murdered his brother. So I'm like, was this guy even relevant? So that was pretty disappointing.
I was literally about to say that scene was my least favorite as well, with Michael Madsen as Bud. That whole scene as well with the strip club, it's just added in there. We all know, yes, he's Bill's brother. It's just added in there to have other subplots involved, to fleshing out other characters. But mainly I wanted it to focus more on getting to Bill, the sooner the quicker. And we do have to deal with this subplot with Bill's brother, and then he just gets killed by the snake, so it just felt kind of pointless to add in more characters. I definitely agree that would be my least favorite scene.
Yeah, it almost seemed, it just seemed a little flat, she's gone through so much and overcome so much up until now, and it's like, really? She gets a few salt buckshots to the chest and buried in the ground, that's like her downfall. I would have liked to see what his skills were, because you kind of at least get that with everyone. You see Oranishi, you see what her skill set is, Vanita Green, we see what her skills are, Elle, but Bud, it's just like, okay, but what can he do? We haven't seen any of his skills, so it's kind of like, well, how did he end up in the assassin squad? Like, was it just a matter of it's about who you know, not what you know? Like,
yes. So, Ashley, if you were to direct this movie instead of Tarantino, what would you do differently than what Tarantino did? This is a question I've asked everybody for Kill Bill Volume 2.
That's such a hard question because it's such an intricately made film with so many different styles being used. That's the part that makes it so impressive, because if you looked at it on paper and you heard someone saying, well, we're going to use this style and this style and this style, and I'm going to do tributes to all these different things, you'd look at that and go, that just sounds like a hot mess. But then you watch it and you're like, oh my god, this actually all works so perfectly together. So, technicality wise, I don't think I could improve on what Quentin Tarantino did, but I would definitely give Bud more of a backstory. So I guess I would do a bit of script work. And I had issues with when we finally meet Bibi and Bibi is introduced, and just the fact that she's not at all surprised or, fascinated or any of this stuff, considering she's a 4-year-old child, and I know how 4-year-old children act, that she's meeting her mother for the first time and she's acting like she's always known her and they've always had talks, and it's like, just because you saw a photo doesn't mean you know this person. It's completely different, and it was so weird, like, that this kid was just like, hi mom, it's like she came home from the grocery store. It was that just didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, kids are very open and trusting, but I've seen children, even if it's family, it's like if they haven't seen that person in a year, then they're a little bit hesitant to be near them, whereas this kid is right off the bat going, mommy, and it's like, oh, okay, well, okay, interesting. Like, I just thought that there could have been more of a getting to know you feeling, because this is their first interaction, instead of it being like, yeah, I just already know everything about this person. That just felt a little weird for me. Didn't seem right.
Yeah, it did feel a little weird at first, but I got into their relationship more and more. But yeah, talking about Tarantino film, how could you improve Pulp Fiction, or how could you do Django differently? It's a tough question, I agree. I would definitely fleshing out Bud as well, make him have a purpose for being in this film. And I would definitely add more of Pai have that character have more training scenes, with Beatrix. It definitely felt rushed, the training, and his death was pretty dark too. I would add more of that, but everything else, story-wise, action-wise, I would not change. Just add more purpose to certain characters and give smaller characters more time is what I would do differently for directing Kill Bill Volume 2. It's a very tough question overall, but Ashley, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the final question here, and that is, where does Kill Bill Volume 2 rank in your Tarantino ranking? It's up to you if you count Volume 1 and Volume 2 as one movie, but where does this film rank?
I can't give it a ranking because, as much as I enjoy these films, I'm technically not a Tarantino fan. Like, I've seen a few of his things. I haven't seen that much of his work because it doesn't necessarily grab me. It's just usually not my cup of tea. Also, there's just always this overuse of buckets and buckets of fake blood for really no good reason. And that's just like a pet peeve of mine, even in horror films. I complain when people do that. Well, at least, like, those people being sort of like, just the fact that it's like somebody gets an arm cut off and it's a flood of blood for like half an hour. I'm like, how are they not dead yet? Like, surely that's all their blood supply. But yeah, like, I've seen a few of his films, but I've never felt compelled to watch them a second time around. And the Kill Bill films are the only films that I've watched more than once. So, like, if there was some ranking, which I just can't do because I don't really care enough about his films to rank them. That sounds so harsh, but it's just being honest. But yeah, I would put Kill Bill at the top of the list, like I said, because I've watched them the most. So obviously I have a bit more of an interest in these ones. But I would be separating them into two different films, and I'd probably put Kill Bill Volume 1 followed by Kill Bill Volume 2. But if you're looking at it one singular film, then it's just right there at the top of the list for me.
Understandable. Tarantino's not for everybody, but I'm a huge Tarantino fan, so for me, the Kill Bill films, I'm going to count them as one movie. I would put this at my number 6, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2 as one movie. Top 5 are just better in my opinion. I think these films are great. Both of them are fantastic in their both different ways. There is an argument to be made saying that they're separate movies, and there's arguments to be made that it's one movie. But I'm going to count them as one movie and put them at my number 6 because there's 8 movies so far. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is his 9th film. Guys, that does it for our discussion on Kill Bill Volume 2. Ashley, thank you so much for joining the Tarantino series, talking Kill Bill Volume 2. And guys, I'm looking forward to hearing your responses, Ashley as well. We're looking forward to hearing your responses to all those questions down below. And Ashley, before I close out the video, tell my subscribers where they can find you on all your social media.
Everybody can find me at The Movie Oracle on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr, if anybody still uses it. But that's where I post all my written reviews. So that's there anyway, if people want to check it out.
Yes, guys, please go check out Ashley's YouTube channel, The Movie Oracle. Her channel link will be in the description below. Go check out her game show, The Movie Oracle. I've been on that game show facing off against Ben Goddard. Ben will also be joining my series very soon. So definitely go check out that episode. And guys, thank you so much once again for watching this episode. And stay tuned to the next episode in the Tarantino series because I'm going to be talking about Death Proof. And joining me for Death Proof is an awesome guy, also from Australia, Steve from Rewind Replay. I'm super excited to collab with him. So look forward to our discussion on Death Proof. And guys, all my social media links are in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!